Hello.
Okay, somebody give me a thumbs up if you're ready for me to start, or if you want me to wait for a minute.
Sure. I think
That's a thumbs up to start.
You want us to start? I'm going to tell her we.
Because I'm not hearing you guys. Right. I can't hear you guys.
Are you recording it?
How do I do that?
It says recording.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so I think we're ready to go. Turn this up just a bit. There we go. Technology is wonderful. Y'all, I am so excited to be here with you today. I don't know what they said before I got on, so I just want to introduce myself to you. My name is Krista Hutchins. I am a chemical engineer. I graduated from the University of Florida, and I am a project manager in the engineering and construction field. I have been for over 30 years. But also, my husband is a native of Lakeland. We got married there, started our family there. I began my career in Lakeland. And so it's really exciting to me to be talking to young women in STEM in a place that is so special to me. And so I thank you to Shay and the other organizers of the event for having me here today. It's really exciting for me. So today we're going to talk about finding our place and finding our faith as women in STEM. Like I said, I've been doing this for about 30 years, and certainly the landscape of women in STEM has changed drastically over that time. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of stories about how horrible it was back in the old days, because honestly, I've not experienced some of the horror stories that I've heard from others. I was blessed most of my career to have good bosses who gave me good, meaningful work and significant opportunities. But I have seen a difference over the years in the relationship between women in STEM and those in leadership in the places where I've worked. So for most of my career, I worked for a very large company. It had tens of thousands of employees, and it was started by this one man. And there was some time that I went to the company headquarters for some training. And one highlight of this training was always that they brought the company founder in at the end of the training. He told us some of his very wise words and things. And then he would answer questions that people have. So this one time that I was there, someone asked him if any of his children followed him into the company business. And his response was so classic. He said, "No, because I only had daughters." And there were a few other women in the room, and we just looked at each other. We were like, we couldn't even be mad because it was just so absurd to hear someone say that. I think the most important lesson I learned that day is that you never let an 80-year-old man speak in public without notes. That was an important lesson that day. Fortunately, most of the men that I worked directly with at my level were not that bad. When I first started, the men in charge had daughters who were in the workforce. They treated me like they wanted their daughter to be treated. And so they gave me lots of fatherly advice, and it was very deferential and very patriarchal. And I can even remember when I had my first baby, my boss ran around the office like he was the new grandfather giving out cigars. That it was kind of crazy. But they were generally pretty good to me. They were polite and supportive. Then in the middle of my career, most of the men that I worked with had wives who were in the workforce. Maybe they met them in school and the women came from their wives came from technical backgrounds as well. And so they treated me the way they hoped their wife was being treated. So it was much more like a peer, and it was good, and it was a big step forward. But what I didn't see were women in those leadership roles who looked like me, people that I could look up to and aspire to be. Now, here near the end of my career, I am seeing women in those roles that I can look up to. Women who are vice presidents and CEOs in industrial and construction companies, in tech and in pharma. They're still in the minority, but at least we are represented now. So you are going to have an amazing opportunity when you begin your careers. You'll be the first generation who is able to walk into a STEM company in a technical role and find women in lower and middle management who will treat you the way they wish they had been treated when they started. And so I encourage you to find those women and allow them to mentor you, that to help you navigate the technical and relational parts of your career so that you can be successful. Now, the modern mentoring model is not what it used to be. It's no longer one wise old person sharing their war stories with the young whippersnapper and just kind of very one directional. Yes, the more experienced person will share with you what she's learned and help you make your way through your new environment. But you've been brought to the table because somebody saw something valuable in you. They want to mentor you because they believe that you have potential and you have something to offer to them and to the company. So use your voice at the table as a contributor, not just as a listener. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your new ideas. We want to hear your fresh perspectives. We want to hear how our company, our message, and our products can stay relevant in a culture that we know very little about. We need your voice at the table. So modern mentoring is a two-way street. It's two people from different experience levels learning from each other and growing together. So find that kind of relationship and expand your personal and professional network as a person at the table. Another way that you can find your place as a woman in STEM is to recognize what season of life you're in. I know you've probably all heard people say how you can have it all. You can have a career, and you can volunteer, and you can be a wife, and you can be a mother, and you can take care of your own parents, and you can even have a side hustle. The superwoman cape of my generation has become the hustle culture of your generation. And here is what's wrong with hustle culture. Here's what I see. Hustle culture says if you just work harder, sacrifice more, grind longer, you can get what you want, whatever you want. It focuses on what you do and what you get, and it never ends. There's always one more email to send, one more influencer to like, one more product to create. Hustle culture, even in the professional workforce, will require you to give up things you don't want to sacrifice, things that are sacred to you. Now, hustle culture is not working hard, and there's nothing wrong with working hard. You should expect to do hard work in your career and in anything that matters to you. But your focus of hard work benefits others as much as it benefits you. And when the hard work is finished, you can put it down and experience the satisfaction of a job well done, not the ache of more to do. For years, women have been tricked into chasing the mythical idea of balance. And from a scientific perspective, all of you know what balance looks like. It means equal emphasis, equal weight, equal effort, all at once. And that's just not even possible in our lives. It doesn't work like that. In the Bible, Jesus says in Matthew chapter 11 that a better way is to watch him and learn from him to live in unforced rhythms of grace. I love that phrase, and it's kind of become like a life phrase for me. It makes my whole heart just unfurl and realize I don't have to carry the burden of it all. I can live in rhythms of grace. So what do rhythms look like? Rhythms, sometimes something may be higher on the rhythm, and other times it's at the lower end of the curve, and something else moves to the top. My friend Esther Littlefield from the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast describes it as a beautiful piece of music in a symphony. Sometimes the horns are louder, sometimes the saxophone is louder, sometimes the drum is louder, and sometimes there's a really soft, sweet melody underneath. But it takes all the parts of the music, all of the instruments, to make the beautiful piece of music. And it's the same way in the different seasons of our lives. Sometimes we may put more emphasis on our career. Other times, more emphasis on our family. Other times, we may be able to step back and serve in volunteering or ministry. But all of those areas of life are required for us to have a healthy and happy and fulfilled life. You can maximize your capacity by understanding what your priorities are and making intentional decisions about where to spend your time. Right now, I do a lot of things, and people ask me all the time, how do you do so many things? But it's because of the season of life I'm in, where I'm kind of in my empty nest years. So in addition to my full-time job, I volunteer on the executive team for Proverbs 31 Ministries online Bible studies. And I have a side business supporting women who communicate and lead. And I'm involved, I have a family around that I'm involved in. But when my kids were growing up, I had more responsibilities at home, and we had a rule. I could only take on one role outside of my home and work at one time. So I could volunteer at the school, or organize an event at my church, or be on a committee in my community, but I couldn't do them all. And it really helped me keep my sanity during those busy years. So as you move through those different seasons of your life, be mindful of where your priorities are at the time, and don't feel like you have to give equal effort to everything or to sacrifice your values for the hustle. There will be seasons where your effort in different areas fluctuate, and that is perfectly okay. Okay, so let's review. To find your place as a woman in STEM, you want to find a mentor who looks like you, who can help you guide you down this path, and that you can have a two-way relationship with. And you want to be mindful of the rhythm in each season of life that you're in, so you can make intentional decisions about your time. Okay, so that's how we find our place as a woman in faith in STEM. But we also want to be able to find our faith as a woman in STEM. Most of us with really logical, linear thinking brains are great at compartmentalizing. And I know that's something that I did for a very long time. I had this view that over here was my technical and professional life, and then over here was my home and my personal life, and the two were very completely separated. I behaved completely different in each world. And I learned early on to behave like that because when we were first married, my husband had put the dishes in the dishwasher, and he had left out like a plate and a bowl that didn't get in the dishwasher. And so I came behind him and I reorganized everything so that I could fit in that plate and that bowl that we're missing. And he looked at me and he said, "Krista, you don't have to make everything into a project." And that's when I realized that my thinking was a little bit different than his. And so when I was at work, people from my personal life probably would not have even recognized the woman that I was at work, because I had to be confident and assertive and decisive and thick-skinned to survive in that environment. And then over here in my personal life, the people from work probably wouldn't recognize me, because I had to be a loving and kind wife and mother and gentle servant in my community. It was a very schizophrenic way to live. Um, I I didn't have any concept that the gifts and skills and talents that I had in my professional world could be used in any other way than in my work. I thought the only way that I could serve others or serve my church would be the traditional kind of things like teaching Sunday school or volunteering at my kids' school and all those typical wife and mother things outside of my office. But over the last few years, I've begun to see how God was weaving all of those things together. I found that through my years in project management, He was equipping me to do something more. I found that in my church, they needed someone to lay out a new floor plan in the nursery. Then my local library needed someone who could organize the selling of a whole bunch of books that had been donated. And in my volunteer ministry world, where I was working with amazing creative women who had big, audacious ideas, they needed someone to help them put some structure around those ideas. They needed someone with some technical aptitude who could extend their financial resources by making a whole bunch of connected Google spreadsheets act like an expensive database. So there were ways that I could use my gifts and skills and talents in lots of different areas of my life, instead of keeping them compartmentalized in one place. And now you guys have the opportunity to take that even a step further. The one thing that I love about Gen Z and millennials is that you guys are out there literally changing the world with your gifts and talents. I learn about so many things when I go to leadership conferences and other events, both Christian and secular. I see where there are young women who are involved in water projects in the most remote parts of the world. They are providing an opportunity for women in disadvantaged areas to earn income with dignity. They're doing things that are truly amazing, and all of these things, they require your skills and gifts as women with technical minds. They require logistics to get stuff from one place to another. They require technology and programming to create scalable systems. They require engineering for the manufacturing. So you guys, if you desire to have work that is truly meaningful and valuable in a way that's giving and serving others, you have that opportunity to do that. And it's not just having to give up your technical abilities and go be, a missionary teaching English in a school in China, which is a great way to give back. But if you're called to use the gifts and skills that God has given you, then there are opportunities for you to use to do meaningful and valuable work that will build your faith as a woman in STEM. But on an even more personal level, I want you to know that you don't have to compartmentalize all the sections of yourself, because God has a wonderful and beautiful plan for all the parts of you. As a woman of faith, I believe that God knows an awful lot about planning, because He had the perfect plan to bring His Son into the world and offer us salvation and healing and life. And just like He had a plan for that, He's got a plan to use all the gifts and skills and talents and the heart that He has given you to be one whole, complete person with something so valuable to offer this hurt and broken world. So I encourage you to bring that one whole, complete person to everything you do. whether it's in your job or in your family, serving your community, or in your church, or even in your one-on-one relationship with God. He wants to do something special. He created you for something special, for a special purpose that uses all the parts of you. There's none of it that you have to hide from others or be ashamed of or be protective of. God wants you to use all of it for serving Him, and that's the way that you can find your faith as a woman in STEM. Okay, so one more time, let's break it down. Find your place as a woman in STEM by finding a mentor who's going to have an ongoing relationship with you and be a caring by caring for the different rhythms of your life. And then find your faith in STEM by finding meaningful work that you can do, that you're passionate about, and that you can bring your entire self to the table and do what God created you to do. I would love to pray over each one of you today, if that's okay. Father, I just thank you for each one of these young women that you have brought in a unique way, that you have gifted and equipped them to do what you've called them to do. Lord, I pray that they would find their place to serve you and to serve their communities. And Lord, that they would be in a place that was healthy and helpful for them as well. Lord, show them what their purpose is. Give them a broad mind to see all the opportunities out there that you have available to them because of the unique ways that you have gifted them. And Lord, I pray as we go out from here today that you would just equip each one of us to be your hands and feet and use what you've given us to serve others. And Lord, I pray that our conversations would be encouraging to each other and honoring to you. And it's in your name I pray. Do you have any questions or anything that I can share with you else?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cover her face. I'm gonna do this shade.
You probably saw it at the night.
Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts, things I can type for you?
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. My words have been inspiring.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Thank you. I'm seeing them type the notes of what you're saying. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'd love to hear you. I hope that is helpful. I think Shay has my contact information. If there's anything that I can do for you guys, I would love to, talk one-on-one and share a little bit. Before I go, I'm gonna take a little picture here of all of us. Here we go. Do I ever come back to Lakeland? Yes, we try to come to Lakeland. We come to Central Florida usually about once a year. My parents still live in Orlando. My husband's family lives over kind of off of Cumbie Road. And so we do try to get back to Lakeland about once a year. I'd love to hear from you guys. What kind of, as you're looking out at your careers, what kind of industries are you guys looking at? What kind of things are out there for you right now?
Okay, anybody have an answer to that?
Materials, yeah. Materials is a big thing. That's an exciting place where all the new stuff that's coming out and different ways to, to reduce weight and everything. Water systems, I love that. And I think there's so much opportunity in the world right now for you to make an impact in water systems through the Thirst Project and all of those kind of things. That's a great place for you to be able to use what you're learning.
Bioengineering, because I have a
Bioengineering, yeah. Yeah, y'all are way smarter than me.
No.
you have any questions about her career?
I know when I went to the University of Florida in the late 80s, and so I entered in the honors program, but I probably couldn't even get in to the University of Florida now. It's gotten so big. Okay. All right. The low moments. There have been some low moments, definitely. There have been some times when things didn't work out. I think I did face one very significant failure in my career. It was very visible. It cost my company a lot of money. It cost a lot of bad relationships with my client. I can remember during those bad times just days where I just prayer walked across the whole site and just prayed over what was happening there and asking God to bless it and to use it and to show me what he wanted to teach me through it. And I think that's probably the best thing you can do in times of what you might consider failure, is to remember, number one, that God doesn't waste anything. He is going to use, and what's really funny is that project that I failed on, when that client wanted to do their next project, they actually hired me away from the old company to come work on the new project because they saw value in what I did, even if the project wasn't a success. And so, so God doesn't waste any of those experiences. Ask him what he wants you to learn from it and how you can use it to move forward. Don't dwell on the failure. Don't dwell on the low time, but ask him, to show you how you can move forward, what you learn from it, and what you can do. I think it's also a way that it's also important when you're maybe in like a downtime, you feel like things are not really working out for you, is to look around at what other people are doing that are successful. And a lot of times you'll hear people say, don't look at others, don't compare yourself to somebody else, don't, just go be your own person. But there's value in looking at someone else and deciding, what can I learn from them? What is she doing right? What is she doing different? And doing exactly what she's doing may not work for you. It may not be what's right for you, but you can look and say, now, how can I adapt that to my world? How can I take what she's doing, learn from it, and use it in a way that will help me get out of this kind of downside funk? Is that helpful?
Yeah, I know she mentioned that she made herself a rule of taking one thing at a time. I was wondering, did she ever feel overwhelmed, and how did she handle so much? Was there ever a time where she had so much on her plate, and how she, handle that as well?
So I don't know what happened. So now I can hear y'all. I don't know what happened. Technology is a thing. So that's great. Yeah. So there were definitely times when I felt overwhelmed. I had small children. My husband's mother was ill. We had to take care of her. And I think during those times, number one, you have to brutally cut out anything that doesn't really matter. There may be things you want to do. I was listening to a podcast yesterday from actually one of my favorite, called Confessions of a Crappy Christian. And I absolutely love that podcast. Y'all go follow her and listen to it. But she was talking about how sometimes when God shows you where you want to go, or he gives you a dream, or gives you a plan or a passion to do something, it doesn't necessarily mean he wants you to do it right then. So we take those visions and we say, oh, I've got to start doing this right now on top of all the things that I'm already doing. And so when you get in those, that's where you get in those overwhelmed times. And so when you get in that feeling of overwhelm, you need to go back and look and say, what's not for right now? Being brutal and taking away what do I really not do for what's right now? Someone also taught me the idea of putting things on the shelf. So you kind of have this like virtual shelf in your brain, or I actually even have one on a file on my computer of ideas and things that you want to do, but they're not for right now. It's not time to do them right now, but you don't want to forget about them. You don't want them just to feel like it's unimportant, because it's something you want to do. So you can put that idea on your shelf and then take it back down at the time when it becomes time for that idea.
I know you mentioned like brutally cut off. Does it also include like, like a moment in your life where you have to just isolate yourself? Not isolate in a sense, but like remove yourself from hanging out with certain people or like doing certain things. Like even if they're your loved ones or your friends, like removing that time and giving your space, is that actually considered like brutally removing yourself from those situations?
Yeah, I think part of that comes from being an introvert also, and a lot of us in technical fields are a bit introverted, and so part of that is like, okay, I've just got to get away from all these people and take care of myself right now. And there's definitely a time when you need to care for yourself, but you don't want to let that become so inwardly focused that you stay in that place, right? You want to let that inward focus when you have to separate yourself from all those other things and put kind of head down on what really, you had to do right then. But then make sure you've set yourself some kind of limit, some kind of time limit. When you said, okay, this is enough of focusing on myself, it's time to open my eyes and look how I can use what I've been through to serve others.
Did you have a question?
I was going to ask, like, at what point did you realize that you wanted to be an engineer?
This is funny. So I was in high school and I loved chemistry and I loved math. And I went to my chemistry teacher's classroom and I said, hey, I love chemistry and I love math. What's a great career to combine those? And she said chemical engineering. And I said, okay, great. From that moment on, I was a chemical engineer. I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea how hard it would be. I had no idea what the career or anything looked at. All I knew was that when I told people I was going to be a chemical engineer, people would say, ooh, you must be really smart. And I loved that. If anybody has studied the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 3. Okay. And Enneagram 3s love for people to know, like, to think they're important, to think they're special. And so when I said I'm going to be a chemical engineer and everybody said, ooh, that was it. That's all it said. It wasn't actually until I was in my third year of college. So when I was in school, you didn't do any chemical engineering or any engineering classes at all for the first 2 years. I had no idea until my third year of college what I was getting myself into. In my very first chemical engineering class, the professor, who was also the dean of the college, told us, if you're here because you heard that chemical engineers make a lot of money, I want you to know that no amount of money is worth what we're going to put you through over the next 3 years. And they were pretty much right with that. So, but yeah, it has been a fascinating career. I've been able to do a lot of different things all over the world. I was able to travel and lead projects in other countries. I'm getting ready to start on a project that's going to be built in Australia. And so it's been a lot of fun. I've been in some amazing technical challenges. One of the projects I was on, we disassembled a giant chemical plant that was in Chile, and we put it on barges and brought it up to Louisiana and reassembled it here in Louisiana. So it was some of the largest loads to ever cross the Mississippi River levee. And it was just an amazing technical feat of seeing what happens when team members come together and they bring their best. When every team member comes and does what they do best, it all comes together and does really amazing things. So it's been a great career, and I'm glad that a chemistry teacher steered me in the right direction.
What led you to go into construction?
I was just on the engineering side for a long time, and I did process design. I was a chemical engineer, so I did process design, and I had the opportunity at one point on a project that I had done from the very early stages of design. I had done all of the detailed design, the fabrication, and I was able to go out to the plant site and be there just about the time the foundations came up out of the ground. And it was fascinating to me then to see how everything that I had designed was actually coming to life, and to see what it was doing, all the good things, all the bad things. You know, there were times when something wouldn't work and it was like, who said that you should design it this way? Like, oh yeah, me, I did, you know, so I had to fix my own mistakes. But seeing how things physically come together, I think, I don't know how familiar any of you are with the design world, but sometimes it feels like you think your product, what you're producing, is a piece of paper that has this pretty design drawn on it. But really what you're producing, what your product is something that somebody's going to hold in their hand and use one day. And so connecting with that thing that was going to be used, and being in that environment of bringing all of those things from paper to life was really, really exciting for me. So I'm right now, I'm not doing too much construction right now, but we're in the design phase on my project, and we will go into construction later next year. So I'll be back out in the field on a construction site next year. So, yep.
I just had a thought. So I like the fact that you mentioned rhythms of grace, because I can testify that I've experienced those. There's moments in my life where everything seems like it's not gonna work, and then it's because we're so focused on our abilities and as a human that we forget, you know, like that God is taking control of everything, and all of a sudden everything just fits together and it just works for your best. So I like that. I'm gonna take that phrase, rhythms of grace.
I love that. It's Matthew 11:28 through 30 out of the Message translation. And he says, are you worn out on religion? Are you worn out? Come with me, watch how I do it, learn from what I'm doing, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And I love that. I just even get goosebumps even now. I've heard it and said it a million times since the first time. It is so meaningful to me. So I love that.
Did you get that down, Shay? Matthew?
Mhm.
Okay.
I think it's Matthew 11:28 through 30 in the Message translation. Yep.
I guess, what's one thing you wish that you knew when you were going through school?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What's one thing that you wish you knew when you were trying to go through school, or when you went through school?
That it's worth it. You know, it's a hard time, and and there's always an element of fear. Did I make the right choice? Did I choose the right major? Am I doing really what God called me to do, wants me to do? And I think it's worth it, because when you get out into the world, there's so much opportunity that degree just opens the door to. Once you have your foot in the door, there's a million different ways that you can do. There's not a whole, I would probably say maybe half of the people I know are actually working in the field that they got their degree in. And so, you know, that degree helps you open the door, but it doesn't define you. It doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't define your career. There's always other opportunities that become available once you have your foot in the door. So it's worth it. Whatever you're going through is worth it. You'll make it.
Any other questions or comments?
Just thank you. Thank you for investing your time in us.
Oh, sure. I loved it. I'm so glad to get to know you guys, and hopefully when we're in Lakeland, I'll have to stop by since y'all are close to that side of town. Thank you so much for inviting me, Shay. I really do appreciate it.
Shay says she'll give you a tour when you come.
Oh, that would be awesome, because it wasn't even there when we lived there. You know, it was probably a cow pasture or orange grove or something when we lived there. So
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me, and y'all have a great day.
You too. Okay, how do I hang up, Shay?
I'm gonna
video. There we go. Oh wait, nope. Did I stop? I just stopped.